This panel is all about the changing AV landscape, and we're going to be covering the things that you need to know. Obviously, what we've heard throughout this morning is that the AV landscape is changing. It's no secret that linear viewership has been declining, and a lot of that is because we've seen a huge amount of fragmentation in the market, and you'll have heard that term a lot, especially if you've been coming to our events. Viewers are spoilt for choice, and in this evolved ecosystem, there's a lot of new acronyms that you've got to understand. Lots of shiny new ways for marketers to invest their money, and all of that is added complication and complexity for marketers. So how is this changing the world for brands and agencies and how they spend their money? That's what we're going to find out here today on the panel. And to do so, we've got a few experts for you, and I'm really excited to welcome them to the stage. So please come and join me, and please put your hands together. So maybe we can start just by going down the line and very, very briefly introducing each of yourselves and what you do. So Vicky, would you like to start?
Yeah. So I'm Vicky Handley. I look after all of the Lloyds Bank brand communications within Lloyds Banking Group.
I'm Kush. I'm the head of investment at Zenith Media, which is the original media agency and owned by Publicis Group.
I'm Gareth. I'm part of the media team at RVU. Not many people have heard of that. So our key sort of consumer brands are Confused.com, Uswitch, and Zoopla.
And if you don't know me already, I'm Tidmarsh. I write the agendas here at Adwanted events and book a ton of our speakers. So really, really pleased to be here today with you all. Kush, maybe you can just start by sharing a lay of the land, what's going on, what are the changing consumption trends, where's the AV landscape at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So I was just saying, I was in the session earlier where you were talking about, the commercial landscape and how it's changed, and hilarious session, really, really interesting as well. But essentially, as you were saying, a lot of what we do is the same, and that's also true of in the video landscape. But how we do it has evolved over the years, right? So I guess over the last 10 years, the big talking point has been linear TV and how audiences have gradually migrated away from consuming content in a linear fashion. And that's essentially migrated to other ways of consuming that content, right, which is led by broadcaster VOD, but also by subscription VOD, also by video sharing services like YouTube and Thinkbox. So that's been a gradual process over the last few years. And that's primarily driven by younger audiences. So for younger audiences, that rate of change has been much faster than your average adult. So if you look at 10 years ago, if you compare where we are now to 10 years ago, you'll see that for all adults, those impacts that you used to get in linear are probably down between 25 and 30%. But if you look at a 45 plus audience, then that will only be 3 or 4% change versus 10 years ago. So a disproportionate amount of that change has come from that 16 to 34, 16 to 44-year-old audience. So that's been, I guess, the biggest change in consumption. In terms of where we are as an industry, I guess, the really exciting opportunity is that a lot of SVOD services are now taking ads over the last couple of years or so, most recently Prime. And that obviously gives us more opportunity to reach audiences, but at the same time there are different stages. Like how they've opted into that model is slightly different. There are different stages in terms of the scale that they can offer on top of the opportunities that we've had before, and I'm sure we'll go on to talk about that. And I guess the final piece is we're making huge strides and we're having the right types of conversations when it comes to measurement, and that's been, that's been something we've been talking about as an industry for some time now, but we've made good progress there. And I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that as well in this session.
Yeah, so we run a conference called the Future of TV Advertising Global, and Peter Field, their effectiveness expert, I'm sure you all know, said, the thing about TV is, why wouldn't marketers want to spend money there? It's just so easy, he said, it's just so goddamn effective. But we know, as you said, linear audiences are declining. Impacts aren't quite the same as they used to be. So I'd be really keen, Gareth, Vicky, maybe we could start with you, Vicky. What strategies are you putting in place to reach those lost audiences?
Yeah, so obviously, as we've talked about, the fragmentation of media is becoming so vast now. So if you want to be much more relevant, much more targeted, and also essentially to kind of gain attention, you're going to have to start creatively, start sort of over sequencing messaging based on relevance and also where they are. So, for example, families are our kind of key audience. They're our sort of bread and butter. That's where we kind of grow the depth of relationship. Now, they are very busy people. They do watch live TV, maybe on a Saturday night, but that's it. So how do we reach them when you have their levels of attention, when they are sitting down to watch something, so that they are actually going to sort of engage with you and obviously then think about kind of progressing the relationship with you. So I think you've got to kind of think outside the box now. And yes, the days are still there, I think, for big production TV ads. But the campaign we've got going live next week, which is our first non-TV huge scale campaign, the kind of heart of the brief was video first, not TV first, which is a first for us. It's normally TV led, and not just kind of one standard video, but looking at kind of all of the different audiences, where they are, what message is more relevant to that particular audience to really sort of gain that attention and gain that impact.
Gareth, are you seeing the same kind of thing?
Yeah, we're not quite as far down the line as Vicky is. I think we definitely identify the opportunity that exists, and Kush is absolutely right. I mean, for a long time we were concerned about the decline of audiences because there was no next cab off the rank, because the sort of SVOD platforms had moved to a value exchange of subscription rather than ad funded. So we sort of scratching our heads for a while, and then luckily the SVOD platforms pivoted in this direction, and obviously you've got social and you've got YouTube. I do think though that there remains sort of 4 issues that prevent us sort of jumping in this two-footed. So I think one is these platforms, I think probably if you look at Netflix, they're quite nascent. So they're putting a lot of effort into where do you splice the ads into shows that aren't built with ad breaks. You've obviously got legacy agency structures and legacy trading structures that need to be broken down. You've got this inherent risk with a lack of single source measurement. And I know what Isbar are doing there with Origin is fantastic. And it's great that Samsung are joining that this year as well. But it's not there yet. We're looking in years ahead. But I think the one fundamental challenge, Sam, is to Peter Field's argument about why wouldn't you do this. A lot of these SVOD platforms, you're looking at a 3, 4, 5, 6x multiple on a linear price. So you've got to get to a stage whereby you can turn to your CFO and say, yeah, despite the increase in price, despite the amount we're having to fork out on this, we are making money back from it. So yeah, we're being slightly more, probably we were tiptoeing, now it's a slow jog into this space, but clearly it's a direction that we're all going to be going in, and we're working closely with Zenith on that.
Let's dig into some of that, because obviously there's a lot of new opportunities across this influx of SVOD suppliers. So what are the opportunities they do bring to the table? You know, if the price is, you know, potentially significantly higher, is it incremental reach they're bringing, or context, impactful environments, so that would make you want to pay that premium? Is it the fact that they are a special environment, they're offering some kind of zeitgeist or fandom related effectiveness halo? What is it for you that would make you spend that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's great content. It's content that we all sit down and watch. It's brand safe. It is essentially, it is TV. It is aired on that big black box you point your sofa at. But importantly, going back to what Kush was saying, it gives us that reach that for the last 10 years we've been terrified we're not going to be able to sell our products to people. Those viewers are now back in the market. They're back up for grabs. The key thing, if you move away from the CPM, the key thing that we're doing at the moment is looking at, on a linear plan, what is the cost of reaching, say, 70%, 80% cover on a linear plan, and then looking at it with the new platforms built onto it. Because at that point, the CPMs start to make sense. But it's very much it's important to test and learn in this space. The one issue that we do have is testing and learning is very difficult without a single source measurement solution. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, whilst all audiences have been migrating and have been out of market, the brilliant content that these guys are bringing into the platform, it's a bit of a saviour for AV, I think.
Kush, how are you approaching these platforms? What are you telling your clients to do?
So I think we're definitely on a test and learn journey with a lot of our clients with these platforms. I think it's a brilliant opportunity with these platforms. But to your question around why would you use them, I think you'd use them for any and all of those reasons. And in the session this morning, Amy and Jackie were talking about what is the brief and what is the objective and for the campaign, and as a result of that, why would you use X, Y, or Z? I think the key thing to reiterate with these platforms is we're just at the start of this journey with SVOD platforms, right? So there's clearly they've got huge reach, right? They've got a large number of monthly active users, which is the sort of key metric that you look at when you look at these platforms. But within that, the ad tier needs to scale, right? So we're starting to see some scale there, but that needs to scale quite significantly before you can start comparing that reach to the likes of the broadcasters, right? But obviously we're at the start of that journey. I think we're working with our clients to identify those test and learn opportunities. And in terms of the measurement question, at the moment, there's some progress that's been made. So Barb is starting to measure. Barb is measuring how people are viewing across those platforms. But what we need to get to is the ad exposures and whether those ads are being seen and how many of those ads are being seen by people who haven't seen your ad on linear, for instance, or on broadcast AVOD. That's the stage that we haven't got to yet, but we are making some progress.
Yeah. David Granger, who's SVP of Planning at Essence Mediacom X at our Connected TV World Summit event, said we can reach 30% of the UK adult population in one evening with ITV, but it will take Amazon Prime a week to reach just 10% of the adult population. So the impact isn't the same. We can't treat all impacts equally. Do you see the same thing?
I think you've always got to have a combination. You can't have either or, I think, personally. And I think where we're going to end up getting to, I think, like SVOD providers at the moment, they don't have that much sophisticated targeting levels yet. I expect that will come over time. But the likes of connected TV, there are very, very strong targeting opportunities there, which you don't necessarily get with SVOD. So I think the combination of SVOD, connected TV, BVOD and linear is going, your AV landscape is a multitude of different customer touch points. And I think that's where, and it may even that you end up getting into buying specific TV spots on linear as opposed to buying ABC 125/54s, for example. And then you start kind of using that ecosystem to ensure that you're hitting your audience in a relevant and timely way.
Yeah, but is the problem here that these SVOD suppliers are simply just going to be too expensive? They're going to price out advertisers. Is that the reality we're facing at the moment?
Yeah, I think to Gareth's point, that is a challenge, especially when you have to manage senior stakeholders internally in terms of why you're paying a premium. I think I don't disagree with David, but I do think that the reason we use linear is great at driving mass reach still, right? If you're buying a 1634 adult campaign, then you might have to run a slightly different mix. But for the majority of campaigns, linear is great at driving that reach, right? So as a foundation channel, it's great. But broadcast AVOD and SVOD start coming into their own after you get to a certain level of reach, right? Because then you get to that point of diminishing return. And that's when it becomes cheaper from a cost per cover perspective to start running these services, right? So even though the headline CPM might seem expensive, it's the cost of reaching those audiences on linear alone would be a lot more than when you start to layer on these additional services. So that's the point of it. So I would argue that you're not necessarily trying to reach 10 million people in one spot because that's not the job that we're trying to do
Right.
with, that's not why it's there. It's there to add efficiency and add incremental reach at a much cheaper cost per cover point.
Okay, great. And just slightly shifting now, do you think legacy trading arrangements are still fit for purpose to deal with this? Because this is tricky, right? It's how do you experiment with these suppliers? How do you see whether it is just incremental reach that they provide within the structures that we've currently got within the industry?
I think we need to have a conversation about legacy trading structures. I think it was Ruth maybe touched upon that at one of the conferences when she said we've seen lots of collaboration, right? Definitely between the broadcasters, but as an industry, we're seeing more collaboration. And we need to have a conversation about, some of those legacy trading structures, about, what is the pot that we are essentially trying to vie for, right? Is it the AV pot? Is it social? Is it, where does that money come from if you want to run across more suppliers? And so we need to make a case for it as an industry, working collaboratively. And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen with everyone.
Yeah, it may be aimed at getting you a good deal, but is that going to stifle your creativity, your ability to experiment?
No, not at all, I don't think, because the way that you use your kind of media mix in totality, you're consistently going to be doing sort of different media placements by different kind of messaging, by different levels of creativity. So no, I don't think so. I don't know about you.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think a lot changes. It's I think what we've got here is it's pitched quite often as a sort of revolution, but it's all it is buying. These new platforms are new TV stations essentially. It's not, there's not a consumer behavioural change as such. So creativity, the thought, the craft that goes into media planning, that remains as strong as ever. In fact, I think right now, if you're an AV buyer at an agency, it's probably your job's just got 10 times more exciting, I think.
Yeah, and I think as a brand, what effectively it's going to mean for brands is that you just have a shed load more assets to create. Mm-hmm. Rather than like one TV ad, you've got, what we're doing next week, we've got 250 assets. That's a 97% cover without any linear. So you're just going to end up creating more relevant, bespoke formats.
I was going to say, Gareth says it makes your job more exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make your job just more complicated?
More complicated, but actually you become, as a brand, much more relevant to people, rather than going, oh yeah, Black Horse, that's Lloyds, I'll switch off. Actually, you'll see an ad from us talking about the benefits of having a Club Lloyds account. So going much more detail into a benefit of an account, rather than just seeing Club Lloyds and turning off. Because even though people are aware of Lloyds Bank, they don't realise that we do investments, for example. They don't realise that we do really strong ISA products. They just think that we do current accounts.
Well, yes,
so it gives you the opportunity to go much more deeper into what does Lloyds bring to you as a person, and how can we help your financial journey.
So dig into it. 250 assets across the campaigns.
That's a lot. I can see Tom going, ah!
Talk to us about the benefit that can have. So obviously we're talking about, you must see creativity as one of these massive levers you can pull across your media mix.
Yeah.
And in such a fragmented media landscape, having all of these different assets, are you seeing to put that much work in, are you seeing a massive boost to your effectiveness?
I think at the moment we don't know that yet, because we measure, so the one next week is measuring category brand awareness, that we do a package bank account. So we will measure the overall awareness through econometric modelling, through Ipsos surveys, etc., and then look at the bottom line as well as to how many sales it's driving through the product guys. So it's a combination of sales and category brand awareness, because as you build your awareness, your sales will naturally start. So top of funnel stuff, your sales will come in at the bottom. So I think that's kind of where brands have got to start thinking, because you can't just rely on linear anymore. You're going to have to start being much more relevant and targeted.
let's stick with the effectiveness theme. I know we've been talking about it a little bit this morning. So what are the biggest kind of levers you can pull? Is it creative? Is that where you're seeing the opportunity within this fragmented media landscape, fragmented AV? Is that the opportunity?
Yeah, I think so. But I think if you go back to the fundamentals, for a successful campaign, right, you need as much reach as you can get in attentive formats with an ad that sells your product to people effectively. So I think in executionally, you might need to be more creative, because you might need to think about, right, how do I communicate all the way from 30 seconds to 1 second, which formats work, do 6s work best on YouTube, you know, what works better on a small screen versus big screen, all of those sorts of things. But fundamentally, the ad's got to be as good as it can be at selling your product or being remembered in the category, and you've got to put it in front of as many people as you can, the optimal number of times, you know, with high impact and attention. So I think creativity generally is, right now, to Vicky's point, it's really, really interesting that creative agencies are going to have to work a lot harder, I think, than historically they've needed to, because, you know, you come in with a storyboard, you pitch a 30-second ad, and then, you know, you might execute some out of home or some press against it, but your job's done. But, you know, now you've got to talk natively in whichever channel that you're in. So creative agencies are going to have to think about, right, how do we land it on the big screen? How do we land it in social? How do we land it on a mobile phone? And that requires a different level of creative thinking.
Totally, especially because it's now got to be video first, regardless of whatever media you use. So if you're doing out of home, digital out of home is now obviously going to overtake paper and paste very soon. So you've got to always become digital first. How is it going to work in all your, like you say, all your different channels? It can't be sort of TV and print led anymore.
And I think the way most of our clients work with us now is, and again, I think someone was talking about this earlier, is, you know, you can't have two separate agencies coming back with two separate plans, right? It has to be an integrated process and an integrated response, and that's what we're seeing increasingly with most of our clients. We go to joint briefing sessions, right? We come back, we collaborate in the interim in terms of the formats we're running, the creative idea, and we present them back together. So it's a seamless, integrated plan rather than, you know, two different things.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. You know, I guess the major theme of this conference today is bringing media and creative back together, media and creativity back together. Is that really what you require from your agencies? Really close collaboration to make sense of this whole landscape?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it with Zenith for a couple of years now. So Adam and Eve are creative agencies. So we are a team. We don't see them as two separate agencies. We are a team. And for example, take Samsung, for example, targeting the entertainment element. Actually, that comes with creativity. How are we going to talk about Disney Plus in the entertainment? If you don't have one without the other, it all falls apart. It doesn't work.
Do you have to, you know, push your agencies? Do you have to sit at the heart of that, Gareth, and you know, play the strong hand?
You shouldn't have to. No. I think creative agencies.
Sorry.
Oh, was that you? Yeah. Thought something had gone terribly wrong for me then. I think those days of sort of agencies, you know, wrestling each other for control of the client, or to be the quote unquote lead agency. I think agencies have realized now that no clients want that. What clients want is more work going on that you don't see than the actual work that you see. So I think it's a reflection of how strong an agency is, how confident and capable an agency is around collaborating with others. And I think in this new world, right, the media agencies now are far closer to the creative process, because Vicky's example is brilliant. But also, creative agencies historically haven't had as much of an influence on media in some cases as they should. The bottom line is, Sam, is these agencies are costing a lot of money. You know, you are paying a lot of money for these people. So you want to maximize, you want to get every thought out of their expertise, out of their brain. You want to get them excited about your business, about the campaign. So yeah, a really great agency shouldn't need prodding and corralling.
Yeah.
It does come down to, like, for example, news brands, they have really tiny formats. If you've got a really kind of big message, it's not going to work. So it'll end up wasting people's time because you have Zenith recommending something that just is not going to be possible from a creative point of view. So it saves money and time as well.
Yeah, and what I'm generally interested in the role of the generalist here, for people who are coming together and bringing this all together. Is there a general, taking a wider perspective, a general move towards more specialists in the industry? Do we need to move back to having general expertise? The return of the AV planner, is that, or the TV buyer, is that something we need?
I don't think you can. You can't, because it's all interchangeable. So digital, so the likes of social media, digital is now becoming part of AV. It's now becoming part of digital audio. All of the media channels are starting to merge together. And I know, Kush, at Zenith, you've started looking at restructuring kind of buying teams so that they start to become, rather than just a print buying team, you've actually got print and digital together. So I don't think we can go back to where we are. If anything, everyone will start becoming much closer together.
And is structure of teams changing? Is what you need internally at a brand changing? Do you need more in-house expertise to be working closely with the agencies? How's that all changing?
Yeah, I think in-house specialisms are natural. So, for example, if you want someone to come and run your PPC in-house, they need to be as good as PPC as they can be. But I think what we don't do very well as an industry is once you are in a particular specialism, the older you get, it's very, very hard to get out of it. And I think that's where people suffer, not only career-wise, but performance suffers because, this is the way that you have done it for the longest time. Mm-hmm. So I think specialisms to an extent are important. I think if all joking aside, if I use Kush as an example as a generalist, Kush bringing together the trading and investment chops, but also merging that with client service and general marketing knowledge, that's something you might not have seen 10 years ago. So I think particularly things like investment teams that were normally back of house are much more involved with client thinking. So yeah, I think generally specialisms are great up to a point, but don't put someone in a box and leave them there for 20 years.
Yeah, Kush, surely you can't do everything, right? So what do you need in your team?
I can't. So I think it's a really good question and completely agree with everything Vicky and Gareth have said. But yeah, internally we've still got specialisms and we've got experts in each of those. But as you said, that process and that the consumer journey has become more complex, right? So you've got to take a step back and look at it more holistically. And that's what we're trying to do. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we have more generalists now than specialists, but I think there's more collaboration between different teams. So whereas before you might have had a CTV expert or programmatic expert, now everyone has to work together to understand what that journey is, what the job is for each specific individual and each of the specific teams in how the plan is going to come together. And then decide, who the best suppliers are to go on that plan, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more work in the background.
Do you see the same?
Yeah. I mean, we no longer have a media team at Lloyds Banking Group. Each person does, I look after Lloyds. We've got a Bank of Scotland and a Halifax equivalent, and we do all media and creative together. We no longer have a media team for exactly that reason, because the landscape is just getting so much more complex. Like you said, you can't be an expert in just one channel. You've got to become an expert across all channels, because it's the only way that your brand is going to be effective and your customers are going to engage with you.
I've been really greedy and taken all the questions. Does anybody have a pressing one in the audience? Have a little bit of a think. I've got one more, but I'd love to see some hands go up. Role of AV on this classic closing panel question. What's going on in the future? Like, what are you seeing next? What's the role of the AV? What's the role of AV on the media plan going forward?
Your answer.
Sure, yeah. I think there's, on the measurement side of things, right, we've made some really good progress. But to Gareth's point earlier, we are still working towards this unified currency and unified way of measuring AV. And I think we need to keep making progress on that front. We've got C-Flight now, right, which measures broadcast AVOD and what that adds on top of your linear campaigns, and that's brilliant, and that's a step in the right direction. And we've got to keep working on that, and hopefully the next step on that will be, you'll start seeing SVOD suppliers within C-Flight as well, in terms of what they add incrementally on top as well. And we've got to carry on that journey of collaboration and sort of working towards that unified currency, so that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. I'd also love to see, at some point, if the broadcasters had a holistic programmatic buying route where you could buy inventory from all of them, and you could holistically reach and frequency cap across the piece, then that would be fantastic for the industry as well.
I can see our sponsors' brains whirring. Gareth?
I think the only thing I'd sum up with is, for 5 years, people have taken great pleasure telling me that TV's dead or TV's dying. I think fundamentally, AV is very much alive and kicking, and it remains, to Peter Field's point, it remains the best way to sell your product to your customers. So, this is like Christmas Day for a brand. It's brilliant.
I'd agree with Gareth. I mean, if anything, for brands, the way that AV is growing at such an exponential rate, you're actually going to get much higher attention, because people are going to choose to watch a program rather than having TV on with other stuff going on in the background of people's lives. You're actually going to have much stronger attention.
Did we have any questions from the audience? Probably got time for one. No? Well, if you liked what we was there one? No. If you liked what we spoke about today, do come along to the Future of Media in October. Future Media Manchester is just before in September. The Future TV Advertising Global is in December. We do loads on TV and AV, so get stuck in, come talk to us afterwards, and a huge thank you to all of our panellists today.
Thank you.